All right, welcome back to Magic Treehouse, Leprechaun in Late Winter. We are on chapter 5 today. And again, if you have this book, you can follow along with me as I read. And if you don't, just use your listening ears. And if you have the book or you don't have the book, you should be visualizing, right, what the author's words are. So it has that movie going on in your head, right? So that you're being an active learner and it's easier to, understand what's going on. Think about the characters. What are they doing? Do you like the characters? Could you be friends with the characters? Make connections to the story. All right. Have you ever felt the way they felt? In earlier chapters, they were kind of being looked down on a little bit. And have you ever felt like that? Or so cold, when they're tropping through the woods and it's raining and their feet are cold. So those are connections. You can make connections to yourself, um, with the characters or the events that are happening, or to the world, or to other stories that you have listened to before. Make predictions about what you think is going to happen. Have I wonders, right? So we're going to read chapter 5 today, and it's A Fireside Tale. So in the last part of chapter 4, we came across, right, Augusta's best friend who's poor. And so she's trying to, convince Jack and Annie she's not snobby. And so the older woman, right, Miss Mary Sheridan. So I wonder what she's going to be like, right? And chapter 5 is called A Fireside Tale. So that's interesting because earlier there was a chapter called Augusta. And, that was pretty predictable that they were going to talk about Augusta, right? So Fireside Tale, I wonder what that's going to be about. And some of you may have predictions. You may say, I think A Fireside Tale means this, and this is what it's going to be about. So, make your predictions in your head, and let's see if you're right. All right, chapter 5. Hello, Mary, said Augusta. She kissed the old woman on her wrinkled cheek. And so there's another, connection that maybe you had. Did you ever have a friend that was older, like a grandma's age, or, older than yourself, that you considered that was a friend? And there's a good visualization to her wrinkled cheek, right? With the firelight on her face, Mary seemed to have a glow. Her warm, snug cottage was the opposite of the big house. It smelled of damp leaves and moss, bread, and chocolate. Firelight danced on the earthen floor and the stone walls. Rain dripped through the roof, pinging into a couple of tin buckets. And who do we have here, Miss Augusta? Mary asked. 2 poor children from town, said Augusta. I want you to tell them about me, how I truly love the poor and I try to help them. Mary smiled. Please, sit down first, she said. Jack and Annie and Augusta sat down on 3 rickety wooden chairs. Would you children like some hot cocoa? Mary asked. Jack and Annie nodded eagerly. Yes, please, Mary, said Augusta. But would you tell them? Yes, I will tell them all about you, said Mary. She picked up a pot sitting on the hearth. She poured steaming cocoa into 3 mugs and handed them to Jack, Annie, and Augusta. Oh, the hot cocoa smelled so delicious. Jack took a sip and licked his lips. Yum, he said. His insides felt warm for the first time all day. Now, Mary, asked Augusta. In time, my child, Mary said to Augusta. Tell me, what have you been doing today? I delivered cakes in town, Augusta said proudly. Then I found these poor children in the kitchen looking for work. I tried to help them, but they say I'm snobby. I brought them here so you could tell them the truth about me. Ah, I see, Miss Augusta. How did you try to help them? Said Mary. I tried to discover what they were good for, said Augusta, but it appears they are good for nothing. Really? Mary fixed her twinkling eyes on Jack and Annie. Well, let us start with this, children. Tell me something you like to do. No, wait. What do you love to do? Uh, well, I love to read, said Jack. And write, said Annie. Read and write, said Augusta. I don't think so. Mary ignored Augusta and kept looking at Jack and Annie. What do you like to read and write? Asked Mary. Facts mostly, said Jack. True stories. Jack writes facts down all the time, said Annie. Honestly, Mary, said Augusta. Soon they'll be telling you that they're actors, too. They've performed in a play by William Shakespeare. Can we talk about me now? Actually, that's true, Jack said to Mary. We were in A Midsummer's Night Dream. Annie said, Annie and I were fairies. I had stage fright. But William Shakespeare himself, said Annie. He helped me get over it, said Jack. He looked straight at Augusta. Augusta rolled her eyes. Will was so nice, said Annie, and smart, said Jack. Of course he was, said Mary. You can tell that from his stories. Oh, please stop. Don't tell Mary those ridiculous things, Augusta said. What about me, Mary? Wait, child, I have a question for them, Mary said. She leaned forward and spoke in a whisper. Where's Summer? Can you answer me that? Mary's question doesn't make sense, Jack thought. I don't know. Do you know where Summer is, Mary? Asked Annie. Summer is hiding with the Shee, said Mary, laughing. The Shee? What is that? Said Annie. Surely you must know the Shee, said Mary. That's what the Irish call our fairies. In the winter, the Shee steal all the warmth and sunshine, leaving us to suffer with the cold and the rain. Annie laughed too. So we've played the parts of fairies in the play by Shakespeare, said Mary. They're just like our Shee. Have you seen the Shee here in Ireland? Mary, Augusta said impatiently. Not yet, said Annie. That's a shame, said Mary. I have seen them. This is a true story. She looked at Jack and smiled. With facts. You might want to write them down. Oh, sure, said Jack. He pulled out his notebook and pencil out of his pocket. Augusta looked surprised. Mary leaned close to Jack and Annie. Her eyes were shining and her voice was hushed. One day, long ago, a lonely young girl took a walk in the old forest, said Mary. All was still until joyful music began coming from a hidden world. Jack loved Mary's way of telling a story. He wrote it down. Old forest, all still, joyful music, hidden world. Augusta frowned. So I guess you can write, she muttered. Suddenly, there came a spinning wind, said Mary. A cloud so bright and a beam of light poured over a river. Jack quickly wrote, spinning wind, bright cloud, beam of light, river. Then they came, rumbling and thundering, exclaimed Mary. Mary, said Augusta. She sounded so impatient, but Mary kept talking. Some with wings, some with horses of white, queens and kings, in robes and gowns and colors of summer and fall and winter and spring. Jack wrote, some with wings, white horses, queens, kings. They galloped in a circle, a blinding swirl, said Mary. They kept up. That lonely girl They swept up that lonely girl and carried her across the river to their secret hollow hill. Had she gone inside, she would have become very small and seen many wondrous sights. Jack wrote, take lonely girl, hollow hill of Shee, wondrous sights. Jack looked up from his notebook, waiting for Mary to go on. When she spoke again, her voice got very soft, but the girl grew afraid and ran home instead. Mary sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. The only sound in the cottage was the crackling of the fire and the pinging of the rain into the buckets. Mary, Annie said softly, are you the girl in the story? Mary opened her eyes. I will never tell, she said. Oh, Mary, said Augusta, such tales. She turned to Jack and Annie. Mary still believes in the impossible. I surely do, said Mary. Every night I leave a little bit of milk on my windowsill for the Shee. I leave crumbs at my door. They eat them too. Mary, the birds eat the crumbs, said Augusta. Yes, the birds are hungry also, said Mary. But the Shee pick over the crumbs first. At twilight, they steal across the river from the hidden hollow hills. Just ask the old fishermen of County Galway. Ask the farmers and the nursemaids. Augusta shook her head sadly. Mary, only simple-minded folk believe in such things, she said. Educated people know what is true and what is not true. No, child, said Mary. They only know what they think is true. Augusta straightened her shoulders. Well, we could now be going, Mary, she said. So could you please tell the children the truth about me now? Yes, said Mary. She turned to Jack and Annie. Do you children have names? Jack smiled. This was the first time today anyone had asked them their names. Yes, our names are Jack and Annie, said Annie. Well, Jack and Annie, thank you for coming to visit me today. I can tell you that you are very special, said Mary. What about me, Mary? Augusta said. I am very special. Yes, child, you are, said Mary. Turned to Jack and Annie. Augusta is special too, but in a different way. How am I different, Mary? Asked Augusta. You try very, very hard to be good, and you are very smart. But you, Mary stopped. But, Mary, I what? Said Augusta. You are not happy, said Mary, and that breaks my heart. Augusta's eyes filled with tears. Oh, Augusta, don't cry, said Annie. She reached out to take Augusta's hand, but the girl stepped back. Augusta wiped her eyes. That's silly. I'm happy enough. I know I'll never see the Shee, and I never will. But I don't care anymore. And if you like these miserable children more than me, Mary, well, that's fine. Augusta ran to the door and opened it. The damp air swept inside as she rushed out the cottage. Though the doorway opened, Jack and Annie could see Augusta's red cape flying behind her. Okay, I will see you at the next chapter.